As we are more than halfway through the book of Genesis, it can be very difficult to remember how the entire book began. The story began with harmony, things actually going the way they should go, a good relationship between God and creation with humanity. But quickly after this, we see a fracturing take place between these different groups. By the time we get to Genesis 32, not only have the animals and humans multiplied, but the fractures have become more complex and filled every person's story. But in this story of the reunion of Jacob and Esau, we see the way of God anew. And instead of hurt comes healing. Well, what we find out in this episode in Genesis is that choosing to mend broken relationships is choosing the way of God. Mending a fractured bone is not easy, but it is normally simple once you have found out the issue. The same can be said whenever it comes to the mending of broken relationships in our lives today. Healing relationships is not easy, but it is obtainable. We call the healing of broken relationships reconciliation. Reconciliation, though, is not just a place in time. Matter of fact, it's a process. The biblical process of reconciliation goes as follows. You have two parties who are broken, but to go towards healing, one of the people who has caused harm chooses to repent and attempts to make up for the pain that was caused. Another step is forgiveness. Forgiveness is extended by the person or the people who were hurt. Forgiveness means to let go of holding judgment over the person who has hurt you. It's letting go of that judgment. Once this has happened, the two can choose to become one again. This week, I want you to try to notice how some of these steps in the process of reconciliation are on display in the Jacob and Esau story. For example, throughout Genesis 32 to 33, we are consistently reminded of the division between Esau and Jacob. This happens through the mentioning of the split camps at the very beginning of this chapter. Jacob calls the location twin camp, reminding us of the twin brothers. Jacob, upon hearing about Esau coming with 400 men to meet him, which is kind of scary, right? Jacob splits up his household into two camps, reminding us of how Isaac's household was split into two after Jacob stole Esau's blessing. The colliding of these two brothers is in the midst of a story built on lies, on tricks. Could this be why Jacob sends so much of his possessions to Esau as a gift? In Genesis 32, 13 through 15, it says this, "So Jacob spent that night there, and from what he had with him, he took a present for his brother Esau. This present of livestock is enough to make a poor person and their entire family rich. So why the excessive present from Jacob to Esau? Later on, Esau and Jacob will meet, and Jacob tells Esau, please accept my gift that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have everything I want. So Jacob urged him, and Esau took it. This word for gift is the same word for blessing, the very thing that Jacob took from Esau back in Genesis 27. What you will notice is that the process of reconciliation has started between the two brothers. We have the reminder of a fractured relationship. We also have, with this present, a repayment of something stolen, and even forgiveness. For example, notice that Esau, after seeing his brother, he runs to him, wraps his arms around him, and hugs him. Instead of a chokehold, we have a brotherly hug. It seems that Esau forgave his brother long ago. But the only thing that is not included is a full restoration. For better or for worse, the two brothers go their separate ways at the end of the story. But where reconciliation is incomplete in this story, we know that through Jesus, reconciliation is actually obtainable. Choosing to mend broken relationships is choosing the way of Jesus. As we do life in the new beginning that Jesus has paved for us, may we choose to heal broken relationships. The steps toward reconciliation are simple, but we need the key ingredients to make it happen. Jesus' ministry and teaching give us those required ingredients for mending broken relationships. We have to have, for example, the ingredient of compassion. Seeing even the people who hurt us as in need of healing. We need the ingredient of inviting people before they repent into a restored community. I think of the father in the prodigal son story, of the father running out to embrace his son ever before his son could even repent. Reconciliation also requires the ingredient of vulnerability. It requires risk. Without Jesus making himself vulnerable, there would be no cross. And lastly, it requires both people. There is no forcing reconciliation. So even when we try to extend it, we cannot make someone else reconcile with us. And in those moments, we continue to pray and we continue to invite. When we choose to reconcile broken relationships, we showcase a microcosm of the reversal of Genesis 3 through 11. In a way, we reverse the fracturing. In choosing to mend broken relationships, we choose not the way of sin and death, but the way of God.